Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalabha Giribharadhare Jashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Shimam Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 84, the Sages' Teachings at Kurukshetra, text number 46 and 47. Nedurmridangapataha Shankabheriya Nakadaya Nanriturnatanartakyas Tutushbhushutamagada Jagusu Kantyogandharbhya Sangitam Sahabari Bhartrika Nedurmridangapataha Shankabheriya Nakadaya Nanriturnatanartakyas Tutushbhushutamagada Jagoshu Kantyogandharbhya Sangitan Sahabar Bhartrika Nedurmridangapataha Shankabheriya Nakadaya Nanriturnatakar Tutushbhushutamagada Jagoshu Kantyogandharbhya Sangitan Sahabar Bhartrika Please chant. Nanriturnata Tushtubu Shutamagada Jagushu Kantyo Gandharbhya Sangitan Sahabartrika Nedurmridhanga Pattaha Sankabherya Nakadaya Nanriturnata Tushtubu Shutamagada Jagushu Kantyo Gandharbhya Sangitan Sahabartrika. Nedhu sounded. Mridanga pataha. Mridanga and pataha drums. Shanka conch shells. Bheri anaka. Bheri and anaka drums. Adaya and other instruments. Nanritu dance. Nartakya male and female dancers. Tustubuhu recited praise. Sutamagataha Sutta and Magadha bards. Jagu sang. Sukantya sweet voiced. Gandharvyaha female Gandharvas. Sangitam songs. Saha along with. Bharatrika their husbands. Translations by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Mridangas, patahas, conch shells, bheris, anakas, and other instruments resounded. Male and female dancers dance, and suttas and magadas recite glorifications. Sweet voiced Gandharvis sang, accompanied by their husbands. Text number 47. Translation. After Vasudeva's eyes has been decorated with black cosmetics and his body smeared with fresh butter, the priest initiated him according to scriptural rules by sprinkling him and his 18th wife with sacred waters. Encircled by his wife, he resembled the regal moon encircled by stars. Purported by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Devaki was Vasudeva's principal wife, but she had several co-wives, including 6 sisters. This fact is recorded in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Quote, Ahuka have 2 sons named Devaka and Ugrasena. Devaka has 4 sons named Devavan, Upadeva, Sudeva, and Devavardhan. And he also has 7 daughters named Shantideva, Upadeva, Srideva, Devarakshita, Sahadeva, Devaki, and Drita Deva. Drita Deva was the eldest. Vasudev, the father of Krishna, married all these sisters. Srimad Bhagavatam 9:24, 21, text 21 to 23. Same, some of Vasudeva's other wives are mentioned in few verses later. Pauravi, Rohini, Bhadra, sorry, Devaki, Pauravi, Rohini, Bhadra, Madira, Rochana, Ila, and others were all wives of Anakadundubi, Vasudev. Among them all, Devaki was the chief. Srimad Bhagavatam, ninth canto, chapter 24, verse 45. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Satarine Vancha Kalpa Taruvyas Cha Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So the narrations of the conclusion of this great sacrifice that actually happened quite spontaneously in one sense. It was not planned like um, yesterday we were talking about, at one moment in the presentation, the class that Krishna Archana gave about Maharaj Yudhisthira organizing a Rajasuya sacrifice, a great sacrifice. There was so much planning that have to go to perform, this great Vedic ritual sacrifice. But this particular one happens quite spontaneously, which was quite something. And to see of the capacity that all these personalities have, not only the sages, to immediately jump and perform this great sacrifice that was just described here, that it was so elaborated and so that it was compared to a Rajasuya sacrifice. And but also these kings, specifically here, Vasudev was always to immediately organize and facilitate this great sacrifice. So it's quite something. So the whole description of this sacrifice, and now we're hearing about the conclusion. And in the conclusion, after the sacrifice is concluded by the sages, then comes, this whole musical and, in one sense, this cultural type of presentation that is just part of a festival. The festivals usually have these elements, have the element of worship, the glorification of the personality of Godhead, have the elements of transcendental knowledge being, narrated, and has the elements of music or kirtan in glorification of the Lord, and dance, all these different, um, how you say, manifestation of transcendental culture or Krishna culture. In Krishna culture, the manifestation comes through the media of these artistic presentations, always accompanied with very expertly executed by experts, um, artists, this glorification of the Lord. So here is described um, the musical presentations and dance presentations that were executed by musicians that were very expert and dancers that were very expert. And I find it very fascinating in one sense because my inclination or my nature is to be, you know, in this type of performances and music and dance and performances, cultural performances. Um, and the quality is something very important that goes with these festivals. That you have the experts executing these things. So to have that organized, well, one can see on those times the type of resources that these great personalities and kings have, saintly kings, and the fact that immediately you can gather, these very expert uh, artists that are devotees and are expert in performing Sankirtan and artistic presentations in glorification to the Lord. So, lot of drumming, which I like too. So we have mardangas. Actually, basically most of the rest of the instruments are described, and some other instruments. Otherwise, you have the description of very different drums. So there's something about drumming for performing kirtan. In fact, mridanga, it is considered a form of Lord Balaram. So mridanga is the chief among all instruments. Mridanga is that instrument that is worshipped. Other instruments are worshipped as the Lord's paraphernalia. But the mridanga is worshipped as Lord Balaram, not different. Namo Baladevaya Sutayo. I mean, the pranam prayers for mridanga is, try to remember, let me see. Namo Mridanga Namaha, Namo Baladevayo. I can remember, but the Sanskrit, but the paraphrasing is, I offer my obeisances to the Mridanga, who appears, who is an expansion of Lord Balaram. So I offer my obeisances to Lord Balaram. The Mridanga has thousands of good qualities. Sahasra Sangha, no, Sahasra Guna Samyutam. Sahasra Guna Samyutam. Thousands of good qualities. And from the Mridanga, very sweet sounds emanates. And then the Mridanga has been manifested by the mercy of Lord Balaram to facilitate the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya. Um, this is the pranam prayers of the Mridanga. It's very beautiful. So, Mridanga is the chief. And then when we understand um, Lord Balaram's mood as the supreme personality of servitor Godhead, Lord Balaram's mood is to manifest anything that is necessary to facilitate Krishna's pleasure, to serve Krishna. So therefore, Balaram manifests the play field in which Krishna performed his pastimes. So therefore, it's understood that from Balaram, the holy Dham expands. Vrindavan Dham is an expansion of Lord Balaram. And it's in Vrindavan Dham, or the holy Dham, that Krishna performed his pastimes. Balaram facilitates all that. Similar, Sri Mardanga facilitates the whole playground for Krishna in the form of the holy name to dance and to perform his pastimes. So Mridanga creates the whole playground, the whole space. So what is that space that Mridanga creates that is very sweet, sweet nectarian sounds, and is full of wonderful qualities? It's rhythms. And rhythms and governed by all kinds of different patterns of rhythms that are combined with dynamics in sounds that creates almost like the wave of a river. And the dynamics, when you talk about dynamics for musicians, with dynamics you can actually create different moods, sometimes meditative, sometimes very exciting, sometimes making a very strong expression, sometimes making a very soft expression. So you create all these different emotions through dynamics and through rhythm patterns. That's all created by Mardanga. So all instruments that accompany the kirtan or the holy name have to go around and serve the whole playground that is built by the Mridanga drum. So when you train to do kirtan, you train to follow the Mridanga. And the Mridanga is trained to follow the kirtan leader. So there's a very strong connection, and because when we are playing the drum, or as a matter of fact, any of the instruments, the whole consciousness is to glorify and to facilitate the pastimes of the holy name. So perfectly trained musicians understand this. And when we speak about, speaking about musicians, speaking about devotional musicians, you understand this. So when you hear very expertly trained devotional musicians, you never see that the holy name becomes covered or overcome by the sound of the instruments. If you are in the middle of a kirtan in which the instrument takes over and then you don't hear much of the holy name, you cannot hear all the details and the subtle melodies and moods that are there when the singing of the holy name is there, then is not appropriate. I'm saying this then is appreciating that in all the narrations that are there of great sacrifices, when the narration is of the performance of this Sankirtan that are always accompanying Vedic sacrifices, is always performed either by Gandharvas or by very expert musicians. The Gandharvas are a type of demigods that are basically empowered by the Lord's Shakti with these artistic qualities. The representation of the artistic energy of the Lord. So there, you can even I can't even imagine the quality of that. Uh, you know, presentation. But we can actually no, actually I retreat that. We can understand that because Srila Prabhupada sometimes he was also very strict in who was going to lead kirtans for all public events, and even during the regular temple functions. It was not such a thing that anyone can, oh yeah, I want to sing. It was not such a thing. There were only those who were very expert in doing. One is that because um, although Srila Prabhupada emphasized it's not about being a musician, but it's actually having a proper understanding of how to perform kirtan, having well been trained. That's the most important part. However, there is something that Prabhupada showed that he always chose those who were also very gifted with the music, artistic abilities. He didn't ask. He had many wonderful advanced devotees that were part of Prabhupada's entourage, but not all of them were asked to sing. And the reason is because when you have devotees who are gifted, then there should be there should be a facility for that, and that's something that helps people be engaged in the activities. So there's a reason, and we see like that. We see during Srila Prabhupada's time, we see in the narrations of the scriptures, Lord Chaitanya, we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we're following the culture that Lord Chaitanya gave us. Lord Chaitanya has very specific people. When we read the Ratha Yatra's organization made by Lord Chaitanya himself, he will organize specific people to sing, specific people to dance, to lead the kirtans and the dancing. It was not all, there were so many devotees that were part of the Chaitanya tree, but we have very specific ones who will do the singing, who will do the instruments, and who will do the dancing, who will lead the dancing. And it's quite something when you actually find devotees who are capable of, by their expressions, artistic expression, either by playing an instrument, by singing, or by dancing, that they can inspire others to do the same. Because the goal of these activities, sacrifices in general, is to engage the masses of people in the worship of Krishna. It's for the benefit of people. So otherwise, you can make a sacrifice. You just, you don't need an elaborated festival. You just be in a little room with a priest doing a fire sacrifice, and then that's it. And you and your wife or your family, and that's it. But in general, these are masses, big sacrifice that involve, a whole country. So expert devotees who have the ability to help others engage. Because Sankirtan means to engage others. Sankirtan is not for a small circle of people. Sankirtan is for others. It's a community. It's not just a little group. It's a community. I remember just thinking about this, how what you see that empower individuals, they can do to a whole crowd of people. The combination of having the natural ability with devotion and with the proper mentality, the proper, you know, mindset. Remember experiencing this, seeing it personally. We were last Ratra Yatra. His Holiness Chandramoli Swami was with us, and we know His Holiness Chandramoli Swami, with his dancing, he inspired people to dance. So the kirtan, last Ratra Yatra, Madhava Prabhu was doing the kirtan. Beautifully executed, beautifully executed. So naturally, people were listening very, very nicely and engaged in listening. But they were sitting all very quiet. And Srila Chandramoli Maharaj comes to the booth where I was sitting, controlling the sound, and say, "Nobody's dancing." And should I go and dance? He asked me and say, "Maharaj, you are the best dancer of all. Just by your presence, you can, if you start to dance, I'm sure everybody will go and dance." So, beautiful, sweet Maharaj is just coming and ask me, it's almost to encourage him to go and see. Could it work? I mean, no one is dancing, so I don't know, I'm feeling, it was showing some transcendental shyness. So, I say, "Yeah, Maharaj, I'm sure." And he say, "Well, you have to come with me." So he dragged me in, and in no moment, I mean, it was incredible. You see people, everybody's sitting, sort of like, and then some people distracted and like that. There was no engagement, like with the kirtan. Some people were singing, and then in no time there was pandemonium, just by the influence of the dancing of Srila Chandramoli Maharaj. So that is why you have to very, very carefully choose and also train people. Train people to understand that it's not for you to feel good about yourself that you're doing something devotional. But if you engage in Sankirtan, Sankirtan means that you trying to involve people. It's for the people, it's not for you. It's for you, but really the mood is serving the mission. The mission of Lord Chaitanya is that he wants everyone in every town and village to sing his glories. So the Sankirtan devotee is to fulfill that mission. It's not just to feel good and your friends that you're doing something devotional. No, that's not that comes as the benefit of doing Sankirtan. That you have the great blessings of assisting Lord Chaitanya in bringing others into the performance of Sankirtan. Because that's a Yuga Dharma, that's a Yagya of the age. So when we engage people in these activities of singing and dancing for the pleasure of the Lord, they're performing a Yagya on the same levels that the Yagya that was performed during the Kurukshetra solar eclipse on the request of Vasudeva by the great sages of the universe, or the Rajasuya sacrifice that was performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, or any of the great sacrifices that we hear in the Vedic times. Sankirtan is the Yuga Dharma, the Yagya of the age. So therefore, it's something that have to be organized very nicely. And devotees should be trained in how to properly perform Sankirtan in such a way that you can inspire people to sing and dance. Because that's Lord Chaitanya's program, singing and dancing. So one have to become expert. It's a skill to do that. You see, Prabhupada explained, it's not about that our focus should be in developing skills. Our focus is in developing devotion. Well, if you are a very advanced devotee, you don't have to have a beautiful voice to inspire people to sing and to touch people's heart by your singing. Because the purity of your devotion immediately reaches the heart. But for many of us aspiring devotees, we don't have that purity. We're still dealing with, our conditions, material conditions. We're still dealing with the false ego that tends to mix these unwanted things in our devotional acts that makes it, alloyed, that is not pure. What are some of these unwanted things? The desire to be appreciated, desire for respect, desires for honor. I mean, the other day, my wife was bringing that in a class. The desire to be honored, the desire to, all these different desires can be mixed in there. Sometimes we see some teenager devotees, they find out that with kirtan, you get into a social circle in which, you can attract girls. It's like, in general, you see that, there's like you want to attract the opposite sex, the creatures they have, they sing very nicely and they move very nicely, like that. So you may be able to do that through kirtan. So these are all mixed things. It's not taking away the devotee's desire to engage in kirtan, because that's very wonderful. But the desire that are mixed makes it, create obstacles in, or place obstacle in the creation of the atmosphere in which the ecstasy of the kirtan can fully manifest. You can see, you can experience kirtans that immediately it arises sort of the experience of Krishna consciousness. Some devotees have that skill. And so, in one sense, because for some of us who are not very advanced in devotion, for the purpose of performing the service, is very important to develop skills. For the purpose of performing the service. And my spiritual master always gave me these wonderful instructions. Watch your intentions. That's all. Keep a very close watch of your intentions. And then as we go on trying to understand how to do our service. So if your service is outreach, to preach, to perform kirtan, to talk about the glories of Krishna, then you have to study, you have to prepare yourself, you have to develop skills. You have to make it better for the sake of performing your service. If we have to preach, we have to learn how to properly communicate. If we have to sing, we have to think about how to properly sing. So sometimes we have to be, just like any type of service, we have to be introspective. If we allowed our flow perception to try to be objective about how we do things, then sometimes there is some sort of delusional thing that happens. Sometimes you hear kirtans that is almost like you having a cat being strangled, you know, because the singing voice is out of tune and is strained in such a way that it creates this screechy sound that for a discerning ear becomes no, no, no. And for a regular person that doesn't know what is happening, it's like, what's going on in here? Is someone being abused or something like that? Or, what's going on? Meanwhile, the performance thinks that, is the most wonderful thing in the universe. I don't know if you are familiar with some of the stories that are given in the Panchatantra that tells all these different sort of, it's almost like a fable. That's how you say fable? Fable stories, of different animals and things to teach moral principles within the Vedas. So it's a very bona fide thing. And then there's the story of a fox and a donkey that were good friends. And they find out that they can get a good meal in this farmer's, patch, which he was growing cucumbers. And they will go late in the evenings, in the dark of the night, and enter into the farm patch, and they will eat the cucumbers of this farmer. So obviously the fox was a very clever, so they make sure, we're quiet and they can eat as much as they want. The donkey, on the other hand, they were very happy eating. But the donkey, in the ecstasy of having this great feast of cucumbers, he fell singing, you know, and then he goes and does his, how you brain, you know. So he's singing, like with great delight, and the fox was all alarmed and says, donkey, stop! You're gonna wake up the you know the farmer with all this noise. And then the donkey took offense. Noise. This, I'm singing such a sweet melody, So from the donkey's perspective, he was, something so nice and pleasant, inspiring. From the perspective of the fox, it was, oh, this is so noisy and disturbing. This is going to wake up this farmer and then we're finished. And there was no way of convincing this donkey to stop. So the fox say, well, I'm sorry, I'm out of here. Good luck. And indeed, the farmer wake up, came up with a big stick and beat up the poor donkey. And the donkey have to sort of acknowledge the situation that it was. So sometimes we don't understand. We don't understand. We don't have a very objective understanding of how we do things. So it's important actually to have some proper training and guidelines of how to be able to perform these things. You want to do this particular service, then you have to be trained. But I can do it. I do it. I do it all the time. Like I like to sing. I sing in the shower. And it's all good. If we like to sing, we devotees have to facilitate devotees' desires and provide proper training for facilitating people's engagement and appreciation of a magnificent, beautiful, transcendental culture, which is Krishna culture. We have to pay attention to quality. We have to pay attention to quality. There is a difference between having a karaoke show and a cultural show and a cultural presentation. It's a difference. You don't see people lining up in a theater to see a karaoke show. That's only for a group of friends and family members. And people have fun and appreciate and get entertained and, get engaged in a karaoke party. I've never gone to one, but I heard about them. The karaoke parties. I particularly have something that when I hear notes that are out of tune, I go like, I'm not transcendental about it. If I hear something out of rhythm and out of tune, I get, no, I can't. Like that. It's not something transcendental, I have to admit. But nevertheless, a karaoke party is something that is good for something. It's good for family and for a group of friends to gather together. It's not good for the public. For the public, it's a cultural presentation. And for cultural presentations, you make sure you find the best. And then that's how Prabhupada organized That's how the followers of Prabhupada shortly after organized. I, I give you an example. When I joined, that was in 1983, in New York. New York was a cradle. New York is famous for having incredible kirtans. Radha Govinda is a kirtan connoisseur, transcendental. So they always, throughout, I mean, right now you have Achyuta Gopi and Ananda Govindas, leading a whole party of incredibly talented kirtaniyas. And they've been there for years. Before then, there were other people that were tremendously expert kirtaniyas, the best. New York, during the time that I was there, that I joined, you have the best kirtaniyas in the world. Some of the names: by Kresha Pandit, Urjeswar, Lakshmi Nrsimha, Vishnu Gada, Shastivar. These are all, at that time here in America, they were the big time. Vyasaki, they all were there. So the kirtans were out of the world. Now, there were a group of us who were being trained, new devotees, and some of us were very good musicians. I was a musician. Indra was there also at that time. So, with training, I became very, very good at kirtan. But I was never allowed, none, me and my peers, we were doing Harinam Sankirtan in the streets of New York 7 days a week, 7 hours every day. So we were constantly doing kirtan and we became very good at it, me and my peers. During the kirtans in public events such as Ratra Yatra, Sunday feast, not even close to sing even the Nastringa prayers. That was the property of those who were the best of the best. And the upcoming, you sit down with them and sing. And you learn. And in fact, that's how we learn. Most of us, my favorite one mentor was Erjeswar. He already passed. But if you look for the kirtans of Erjeswar, they're just, typical New York style. Incredible. We sit with them and we get trained. We get trained. And Prabhupada once mentioned, when the king is present, the queen steps out. So there's no question of, yes, I sing when the king is present. So that's how we were trained. So that's for the public events. Now, during the kirtans and regular different things, then same thing. You can apply what you learn, understand, and indeed, the whole idea is that you learn not just to sing a melody, not just to play an instrument, but actually to be able to engage people, to be able to make people, to connect with people in such a way that they also participate with enthusiasm in the process of Sankirtan. And that's the idea. So these are some of the things that you experience in these great festivals. And again, I like the description of these so many drums. I can imagine all these different. The Anaka drum is like a timpani. Timpani. It's a big boom. The one, the orchestral drums. Boom, boom. like that. And some of the other drums are a little smaller, and then, hand drums and things like that. All these different drums were accompany the mridanga, which is again the chief of all instruments. And if you have drums, other drums, same thing. When you have the king, you assist the king. So if any of the other drums covers the sweet sounds of the mardanga, they're making a disservice. So, like when people plays the djembe, and the djembe is a much more passionate, stronger in sound than the mardanga, and then completely untrained kirtan players who just learned, to do a rhythm in this djembe, they come into the kirtans and completely annihilate the sounds of the mardanga. And then it's finished. Then the kirtan becomes something else. So this is the part that is so necessary to train, in all these very important cultural aspects of performing and executing Sankirtan. So these drums, have to be all aligned. Like, for example, our dear friend Chandra Prabhu, he plays a djembe, but he plays the djembe in such a way that enhances the sounds of the mardanga, who is this expert. Good one to learn. Most of the devotees who play that djembe ruins the kirtan. But they don't know. Everybody feels, is again, they think it's the most inspiring thing for themselves. And for, it changes the mood to be much of a passionate thing rather than a transcendental experience. It's again, it's a very fine line that requires training. Anyway, it came out. I'm passionate about it because I think a lot about it, because this is a type of service um, that inspires me, and I want to. Um, that has been a very important part in my life. So you share this with you. Any comments or questions?
Thank, thanks for the class.
Speak closer to.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the class. It's very important. A lot of things you said about
Number one, just
purifying.
bring it a little up. Hold on.
Um, what I want to say is, when we was coming up, we used to form groups, singing groups, right? So everybody's not a lead singer. Some
A
people,
lead singer. No, no.
yeah.
Number two is not. Number two down. Number one is up.
Some
Hare
of us,
Krishna. No, no. I'm sorry. Then the other way. Then number one down. Number two up. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Okay.
that's good. Uh, the point I'm trying to make is, some of us are not lead singers. When we was coming up, we used to form groups, like Temptation. We would follow groups like that. And me myself, I was always a background singer. I could never lead sing. So being a background singer, you always listen to the lead singers and follow. Try like you said with the donkey. You know, you can throw everything off. You can throw the whole harmony off. If you make one wrong tune, one wrong sound, make everybody look bad. So I used to try to, just follow everybody to sing. And then when I would throw everybody off, real quiet, like we making harmony of it. I would sit back and say, because if you sing too loud, you throw everybody off. But another point I want to make is I'm not a lead singer. So it's not meant for everybody to lead the church.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you're saying that, to have someone feeling that you feel, that's a failing of the lead kirtanier. Sometimes as lead kirtaniers, we have, like anything, when you're giving a class or when you're leading a kirtan, you have to be very sensitive and connected to the group of people that is with you. So if you have an audience, I mean, you can sense that that is not necessarily a group of skilled singers, and you give a very difficult melody, with very difficult rhythms and patterns and things like that, that is very difficult to follow. Then you create a sense of someone is even one person, like say like you, oh, I don't know, let me just, that I'm not gonna sing, or I'm, in my head I'm gonna ruin it, because I cannot sing that melody, or I cannot sing, the thing. Then I fail. Not you, the lead kirtan fail. Because the idea, again, is not for me to show how incredibly, I can do these complicated things so nicely. But it's, how I make it easy for a whole group of people to engage in Sankirtan and sing. So in general, Prabhupada's genius, his melody was so simple that he was able to, I mean, people even without knowing the mantra, they remember the melody. Sometimes people will reach you in India, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, like that. They say they don't sing the melody, the mantra properly, but they remember the melody. So, it's part of the whole mood that you have to make it simple for others to engage. And so you feel you don't have to think, you get into the kirtan experience, which is, you start to, you know, it's you enter into this religious experience basically, in which it is you get caught into the whole beauty of the Sankirtan Yagya. So that's why it's so important to have the proper training, that for the proper purpose, to facilitate someone like you doesn't become how you say, thinking that no, I should, maybe I should not sing like that. Yeah. So no, it's let the heart comes out, and really at the end, it's just beautiful, because what you start to get is people feeling inspired and starting to get into this whole space that is very special, which is the Sankirtan Yagya.
Another thing I was thinking about what you said like when you play the madanga, you should hear the madanga more than you hear the chant. But the madanga always stands out. Stands out.
Well, yeah, you see, the mardanga is serving the kirtan leader. So when you have a mardanga player that is making the mardanga sound louder than the kirtan, then is not doing the proper service to the mardanga. But then it creates a whole change that those who are following the mardangas, they also, then the whoppers start to crash those whoppers loud, and then at the end you really don't hear anything of the kirtan. So all start with the mardanga. So if the singer is singing a melody, that is very meditative and very sweet and soft, Krishna, Krishna. Then the mardanga, "Tudum, bu- 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 bu-" it's like, you're not connecting. You're just listening to yourself and then doing all these intricate rhythms that makes, things. It's like, what you doing? Again, training. It all requires training. It requires musical ear. It requires, proper musical training. It's a skill. You know?
I was just thinking about this point of the flow of the kirtan. So there's a certain cadence that gets established by a particular um, lead singer or lead mridanga player, and then sometimes it's a practice that, or it seems to be the practice that there'll be one particular lead mridanga player or one particular lead singer, and then that person has their space, and then somebody else will have another one. The singer may change. So I was wondering, um, with the same audience and the change of singer, or maybe even a madanga player, although I think usually it's a singer that changes, um, how does that feed into the idea of a certain cadence, that there's a continuity? Because obviously each new singer may have like a different melody or different moves.
Well, if you have expert ones, it's very exciting. And because then you have a different flavor, a different. So, variety is the mother of, what is it? The mother of enjoyment or something like that. So, to have all these different flavors is also very exciting. Like in the Brooklyn Temple, the kirtan, you remember, there used to be four main kirtaniers, and they would switch, and it would be one as exciting as the other one, but they were different too. So it was really, really fantastic. And sometimes we have in these kirtan programs, in which many of these very gifted kirtaniyas, young kirtaniyas, they switch. It's really exciting. When you go to Gauravani, to Madhava, to Achyuta Gopi, I mean, they all in their place. They're just so skillful and so good, and so expert and engaging. So it's all that, as long as they all understand the art of kirtan. Kirtan is an art that has to be learned. You don't learn it, by following a melody and learning in YouTube, and sort of singing with your friends, in your house or something like that, on your family. No, it's an art that needs to be trained like that. Yeah. So, Okay, thank you so much. Grantara Shiman Bhagavatam ki jai.